Right, we are here. It is week 2, and we are starting our feature matches off with a bang here. Johnny against Cody-Rayce, which is our last two players of the year. Our current reigning player of the year, Cody-Rayce, and our first and former player of the year, Johnny. And Justin's here with me. He's going to be looking at things from Cody's point of view. Looks like both players are taking a mulligan here to start the game. So I think, from what I know, Cody's playing a spells deck of some kind. Um,
Yeah,
I guess,
he's playing more on the blue red archetype,
yeah.
splashing some white cards.
Okay. Johnny just seems to just be playing all the colors. I saw his deck earlier this week. He has many legends, lots of gold cards. Um, so, leaning into the domain. Uh, Looks to be a red green base, but he's branching out into too many of the colors here.
From what I know, from when I played him this week, he wasn't actually running white just because the lands he had in his pool just not allowed that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so it looks like he's mostly, I was going to say green and red, but he's drawn a Voda Sea Scavenger, which is a blue 3 drop. But he's going to attack here with his Squee. And in hand, he still has 2 mountains, and then he has Miria's Outrider, which is going to come down and deal 4 damage. Sprouting Goblin and the Voda Sea Scavenger. This Miria's Outrider has been a very impressive card I've found so far.
Yeah, it turns out when a 5 drop that 4/4 that just lava axes your opponent is just pretty good.
Yeah.
And the fact that it has reach is just what makes it probably so good, in my opinion, just because it's able to like block all those pesky flyers for the domain deck,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of come down, stabilize you while also just putting pressure on your opponent.
Yeah, so here's a weary prisoner, which is indicated that Cody-Rayce has taken a visit to Crimson Vow. On one side, it can't attack, on the other side, it must attack. So, very interesting design space they played around with there. A 2/6 is just gigantic, though. Um,
I, I I don't hate the card,
yeah,
especially in this format.
I think in
It blocks
Vow, yeah,
really well.
it got a little overshadowed in Vow with some of the really powerful things that were going on in the set. But I think just drop this guy into any random format. It's good. It's annoying to deal with.
Especially when it flips, you're just looking at a 6/6. Like it has to attack every turn,
Oh yeah.
but most of the time your opponent just has to like spend multiple resources to get this off the board if it should attack or just take 6 to the face.
Yeah, it's strange because usually the deck that wants a 2/6 blocker won't want a 6/6 attacker, which is why it was sort of a strange spot in the set because those 2 cards usually don't go in the same deck. But when they're one in the same, yeah, it gets in. So
What do you think about it? Like 2/6 defender, not really something you realistically want to get off the board until it really flips, but also just having 6 toughness makes it so it's mostly inaccessible to die from red cards
yeah,
and even green cards with their fight spells and like bite
nothing on the
spells,
ground gets through it unless you have Death Touch. Okay, here's a
as you can see
Kavu.
here.
Yeah, so we're just gonna look at a board stall here. Though Cody has emptied his hand here and is able to make use of the Battle Wing Mystic, just using all of his mana, emptying his hand, and drawing 2 cards before Johnny can deploy all the things in his hand. So we have Johnny has Terra Sunder, which can remove one of these creatures if he sees fit. Though at this time, I don't think any of the creatures are threatening him. He has a Vohar, which is a blue black legend, Salvage Mana Worker, and a Mountain. So now he's gonna get some card selection here. He's gonna choose the best of the top 4, and there's 2 rares in there: Llanowar, Loam Speaker, and an Elder Dragon War to go along with a Lightning Strike and a 4/4 Reach. So he's got quite the pick of cards here. He's gonna go for the Elder Dragon War, since that's gonna wipe out a lot of the creatures if he wants it to, or just make a dragon.
I don't see him personally choosing the first chapter if he ever plays it, just by it would wipe out almost everything on his board and would, I guess, get rid of all
Yeah.
the flyers on your opponent's board, but would still leave like, some pretty problematic threats.
Yeah, he might do it to cycle out like his mountain that's in his hand, and then this is an interesting one. Giralf,
But
Visionary Stitcher. So it gives zombies flying, and you can sack creatures to make zombies equal to toughness.
Equal the toughness,
Well,
yeah.
that's something to do with a 2/6 defender.
I foresee this Giralf is going to be torn asunder soon.
Yeah, turning a 2/6 into a 6/6 flying is highly appealing, but I he might not get the chance to do that.
Yeah, just the Mary Outrider that we were saying before, just showing off how important it is for these domain decks. Here, he's just holding up 5 damage of flying like every turn.
Yeah, the fact that there's two 4/4 Reaches at common just gives this domain deck a good way to defend itself. And since the domain decks can be slow out of the gates, this Mary Outrider like helps you win the game fast, hitting your opponent for sometimes a full quarter of their life total. It's a good way to get the game over once you've stabilized. So it plays double duty really. This Outrider and does so excellently. So Johnny is
Is there
attacking here, which indicates that I think he's planning to play the Dragon War. If, but we'll see.
maybe he's hoping opponent blocks with Giralf, just like that. He doesn't have to actually use the Taurus
Yeah,
Thunder.
because he's attacking with all the creatures that would die to the Outer Dragon War. I think he's going to use the Sprouting Goblin, sacrifice a mountain because he has another mountain in hand, and then probably deal 2 damage to everything, hoping that Giralf gets in the way here.
I I I think though to Cody, who only has a land in hand, like Giralf just seems like a way to just win the game. So I don't foresee it actually getting into battle here.
Yeah, yeah, this is an interesting choice by Johnny to go down this route instead of maybe just getting rid of the Giralf before it can make a big token. So while Cody's lining up blocks here, um, just take a moment to talk about Johnny since he's one of the original league members. I've known him since I started playing Magic. He was one of the FNM sort of bosses. If you wanted to go 3M in a 3-0 in an FNM pod in a draft, and he was in the pod, you were probably gonna have to beat him at some point in the night. Um, so he's just been a very good and consistent player for a long time, as evidenced by him winning Player of the Year last year. And also, not to mention that both these players have got off to very good starts in the league. So Johnny's 7-2, and Cody is 6-3. So we got two of the top players here.
Yeah, it just goes to show also how week 2 already makes the decks look a lot more consistent, more powerful, as opposed to their week 1 potential versions.
Yeah, we saw some suboptimal sort of draws from people last week, mostly constrained by mana and not just not being able to build a coherent deck yet. We did see a lot of that, and these decks look to be knowing what they're doing. I mean, Johnny's is a little more, has is playing 4 colors, but his mana's good. He seems to have enough to do in the early game to not get run over, and has some heavy hitters here.
So again, just because it's week 2, we're still gonna have those appearance of board stalls, just mostly just because the people just don't have access to as much premium removal yet, and it's gonna be that's why you all usually have to rely on these evasive threats. And again, the reach from just this mere outrider just stalling the game for the domain opponent.
So looks like Johnny got a bit bailed out by his draw here off this routing goblin. He drew a cut down, which can just deal with the draw. Since he decided to do Elder Dragon War this turn, and he basically had to stick to it after those attacks. Uh, he now will not have to deal with this Giralf any longer. He's just going to cut it down now before Cody even sees another card that might change something. So yeah, without drawing that cut down, that Cody was untapping with Giralf and a 2/6. So sometimes you gotta get rewarded by the top of your deck. So Johnny
Yeah,
is free to discard a Vohar or one of his 2 Terra Sunders. I think he'll decline all of those options.
yeah. Johnny looks to be in a pretty dominant spot. Cody over
Yes.
here only has, again, once again, just a land in his hand.
Yeah, so Johnny has effectively three removals in hand, right, with the Vohar and the Terra Sunder. So, um, that 2/6 is not an imminent threat, but he just, for lack of other things to do, just get it off the board.
Well, Cody just drew a Jodas Codex, but
Okay,
as we
he's gonna
know,
have to
Johnny
tap
has
out.
another.
Yeah,
Well, Johnny, yeah.
he's gonna have to tap out to use it. Uh, you know, not optimized in a two color deck. Still playable. I know I'm running two colors and I decided not to play it, but that could be wrong. Uh, in these type of grindy games, even tapping it for three to draw a card could be good enough. In this game, I don't think it will be because we see Johnny's gonna apply the pressure here rather than kill off the Codex. He's just gonna get three extra damage in with his squee coming back from the graveyard here, reminiscent of the escape mechanic from Theros Beyond Death. I think text wise it's identical to it.
So bring the opponent down to 5 here.
Yeah, so now outside of a board wipe, Cody needs multiple answers here to
He has
survive.
drawn Island and Impulse,
All right,
impulsing for.
so Impulse gives him another look here.
Doesn't look like he's found anything to particularly survive.
Yeah, Johnny just had the removal to back up his good cards here, and used his Elder Dragon War. It was a little unusual use of the card, but he found a way to make it work there and not get punished. So we're gonna go to game two here. Like I said, taking a look at Johnny's deck, it appears he's just spread across all four non-white colors. Has double symbols of a lot of different colors, double red, has double black, has double blue, I think. So no real splash, but he has lots of lands. Uh, Assuming he's just opening Dominaria and going to keep opening Dominaria for more lands and domain payoffs. Didn't get a great look at his deck. He's still studying the board from last game. But what do we see on Cody's sideboard?
So it looks like Cody actually trimmed down the white. It's just no longer running any white
Okay,
lands or any white payoffs.
okay.
Just straight up blue red. Does make the codex a bit worse, but I think in the format in particular, it just allows for this slower type of card to actually thrive. Because usually in any format, you're like, you play a 5 mana, do nothing, and then you have to pay 3 mana constantly to draw a card. And that's typically not great, but in this format, you could actually afford it as people are not killing you as
Yeah.
fast.
I think based on what I know about his deck, he's hoping to not have to use Codex as a win con, but in a 60 card deck you can slot it in there without feeling too bad. But I think his deck is trying to win before he needs to be using that every turn.
Yeah,
Unlike other decks which are leveraging it as a main win con a lot of the time.
yeah. Like for instance, like we put in Johnny's deck, it's 5 mana, and you're going to be spending 1 mana to
Yeah.
draw a card.
Yeah, so once Johnny has removed all the threats with his gigantic suite of removal spells, he'll just draw two cards a turn if he had it in his deck.
So Cody looking here has a opening hand of 2 lands and 5 spells.
Okay.
And 1/2 drop, so he will need to draw a land at some point in order to get the game rolling.
Johnny has kept a similar sounding hand, so two lands, five spells. Only green and black mana though. He's drawn us a third land, but he's still only green and black mana. So his blue and red cards are rotting in his hand for the time being. But he will be able to cast an Eerie Soul Tender and a Tribute to Urborg in the next couple turns. But his three other cards, blue and red cards, are not being put to use. So he's just offering up the squee here. Getting in 3 damage, putting the squee in his graveyard for later. Johnny's drawn yet another swamp here. So he's drawn three swamps and a green black land.
Yeah, kind of just showing the risk of just playing four colors.
Well, at least he didn't mill any islands or any blue or red lands. Uh, though he did mill his lone speaker, which could have helped him fix and getting some value with Squee in the graveyard there.
So I see with like the more colored decks, like usually you don't want to keep you'd be more averse to keeping a hand with less lands just because, for example, in a two-color deck, if you have like one land of each color, it's actually not that bad. You could always draw more lands. But in a more, like four color deck, you could have like two lands, one of two colors, and then you're still like, stuck. You still have to draw more colors to potentially play your cards.
Yeah, that exactly describes what we saw here. Johnny basically kept a you know like a he basically kept a four like a 5 card hand, right? He had like 2 lands and then 3 spells that he could reasonably cast, and the rest were just sort of not doing anything. So Cody's put on the pressure. If I remember the Gutter Skulker, it's if it attacks alone, it can't be blocked.
Yes, and
Yeah.
its backside is you cast it from the graveyard for I believe 4 mana, and you give that effect to the creature that's enchanted too.
Yeah, so just kind of like a really good threat here.
Just
And
a constant 3 damage
three
or
three is a lot. So here's our Urg Spawn of Turg, which was his draw for the turn. Always fun to say that. This
it is castable from his lands, so
frog beast. This will hopefully help him get to the mana he needs here with the surveilling. But this 3 damage, like I said, adds up, and now a 5/5 trample as well. Yeah, so he's gonna dump a blue card in the graveyard and draw Gaia's Might. Not of much use here. Uh, it only gives +2/+2, and it's also just not what he needed as well.
just really looking for the other colors of mana, I assume.
Yeah, he has a tribute to Urborg, but that's not really moving the needle here on what he needs to get done as far as interacting with his opponent's board. Yeah, unfortunate.
I can see a world where if the 5/5 would attack, Johnny would block with the 3/1 and trade 2 for 1 just to get it off the board.
Yeah, I mean, but also Cody can just attack for 3 and it can't be blocked and just leave his 5/5. So we'll see what Cody's opting to do. So what are his options in hand here?
His options are just to play more creatures. He has actively no non-creature spells, so nothing to
Okay,
really interact in combat with.
all right. So it's just deciding what to attack with and which creatures to play. And so he's just gonna send everything in here.
I like it. Your opponent's
So
stumbling, trying to end the game.
yeah, so if Johnny wants to, he can get this 5/5 off the board. He might just opt to take 5 here and just block like this and block the 05 on the 2/2. Take 6, and this still doesn't let him use his tribute to Urborg, unfortunately, in any
He
useful manner.
he might just be forced to use it next turn if Cody were to put the enchantment on the 5/5 just
Yep,
to live.
that makes sense. Okay, looks like he's deciding he needs to use his tribute to Urborg here.
I think he noticed the possibility of just being dead next turn to the Gutter Skulker backside,
Yeah.
and
Okay, so he's gonna use his Gaia's Might here to eat one creature, and looks like he's assumingly going to use his Tribute to Urborg. So he's using it now because he saw that when he cast his first pump spell, it just passed through. I think normally, if he wouldn't have cast his pump spell, he would have waited till end step to cast the Tribute to Urborg, but he saw that it just passed right through. So it was safe. Cody had no instance.
yeah,
So Johnny's
just
looking at a tapped blue red land, which unfortunately, he has to put in his graveyard because he cannot cast anything. He has only blue and red cards in hand, but at 5, he can't, you know, afford to just take a tap land.
so Johnny is not dead on board at the moment.
But he's going to be dead next turn, most likely. Yeah, so even this blue-green land, Johnny still has a double blue card in hand with the Vodalian Mindsinger, the rare. But he has a Phyrexian Espionage. Espionage is the only card he can cast, which is not helping here. So just unfortunate mana situation. It does happen sometimes. He does have a lot of land, so it shouldn't happen as often. But we know, that's the game, and it happens sometimes like that. We saw it last week a bit too.
We might see this Urg's Monitor even activate to sack one of his few lands just to try and survive.
Yeah, the swamp is doing like he doesn't need three swamps right now, so might just throw one away, gain some life, and then just yeah, block this 1/1 here. So get a creature dead, gain some life. Nah, he decided he can't take three. Yeah. Weighing his options. His decided he doesn't want to potentially go to one here. Or well, he's going to one, but he didn't want to. He wanted to take as little damage as possible. But at the point where he's at this game, he's taking a lot of damage no matter what. Yeah, this is gonna pretty much seal the deal here for game two.
Or creatures, all lethal attackers on Cody's side.
Yeah, I'm putting
Oh
in
no.
good. I'm putting in good words for automatic librarian in these early days of League.
Yeah, just the card that you can always cast with 3 mana of any color that scries 2. Notably is some of the time better than the Undersea Scavenger that we've seen.
I think it's mostly always better, but that's a personal opinion. That could be incorrect. Um,
Sometimes you really need one card
yeah, and I will say if
specifically.
you ever scry a Jodas Codex on top with that, you should get an instant flavor win because he found the
Yes,
best book in the
the
entire
librarian.
library. So
The librarian found your book.
he found the best book in the library, right?
Yeah.
So Johnny deciding if he wants to do any sideboarding. I don't believe he did any in the first game, and it looks like he's going to be content to send his deck back exactly as it was there. Unfortunate, but we know when you're playing 4 colors, mana bases unlimited are bad. The more tap lands you have, the better. So his mana is not terrible, but that's still how the lands get drawn sometimes. But we saw in the first game he had no problems. So let's see what shakes out for the third game here. Is Cody doing any sideboarding over there?
He's put 2 Abrades to the side of his deck. I don't know what that means.
I can't imagine he'd be seriously considering siding them out. I would say most of the threats in Johnny's deck don't get hit by a braid. I don't think it's mostly just like smaller creatures, but a braid is just too good to cut. I think in most cases,
It's so efficient for what it does.
unless you see a hardcore control deck where they're just playing walls and win cons. You're probably not siding it out. Johnny's got a bit of a slow hand here. He has a salvage mana worker, which should shore up some of his land issues because his other lands are 2 forests. What's Cody's hand looking
He
like for the first few
he
turns?
also has kind of a slow start. He
Yeah,
doesn't have any really aggressive creatures. This amplifier, yes, it's a creature, but like you do have to do some work in order for it to be like do damage.
yeah. I think Cody's deck is apt to get more punished by starting slowly here. I think he's the one that needs to get the board presence and get ahead.
Notably, yeah, notably he does have Impulse and Cradle of Safety from Crimson Vow. If you don't know what it is the +1/+1 enchantment that also gives hexproof the turn it comes in.
Yeah, so that won't trigger the Gitu amplifier's ability, but it'll still give it a pump. Yeah, so
He is holding 2 Lookouts in his hand, so he will have stuff to do in the next following turns with
yeah,
some pretty.
these
good flyers.
Yeah, the Talus Lookouts are going to do work. One of them is probably going to get hit by the Terra Sunder, which exiles it notably, so it doesn't get its little card draw ability when it dies. Rest of Johnny's hand is Bortuk, Bone Rattle, a Gaia's Might, Writhing Necromass, and a third Forest. Though with the Mana Worker, he will be able to play off-color things, but he only has green and black cards right now.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he's going to be playing a actual threat soon.
No, uh, if Cody plays the Talus Lookout, Johnny will probably just feel okay casting Terra Sunder on it, I would think.
Yeah, just try and keep some tempo. Try to get to your late game. That's kind of what the domain decks are all about. And especially against in a more aggressive blue-red deck, you just
Yeah,
want to survive.
I think if you get to 1-for-1 with the Talus Lookout, you end up feeling pretty good about it.
Typically, a domain deck will have better like game than a blue-red deck.
Okay,
On the unless the
he's
blue-red deck
he's
has
got a
just an insane amount of
Phyrexian
rares.
Espionage he can kick here, so a couple more cards at his disposal. So he's drawn a nice pair of cards here in, well, Molten Tributary and then a Shadow Prophecy, which will let him look at 4 cards and take 2.
Oh, the Molten Tributary is the
It's a blue
blue-red
red.
dual land.
Yeah, so those were the 2 cards he found off the Espionage.
Okay,
So
that's really good.
the spies worked very well for him. Got him what he needed there. He's now got a 4/4 reach, which might just be the play here.
Yes, basically the enemy of the what Cody is essentially right now.
Yeah. So yeah, there it is. 4/4 reach. Does Cody have any way to get around that this time?
No, from his sideboard didn't look like he actually had that much good big removal.
Yeah, it's hard and it's hard for red and to kill. I mean, you have Jaya's Fire NATO in this set. If he's been opening Vow, he get Lacerate Flesh, I think it's called. Another inefficient removal spell.
Personally, I just prefer the Fire NATO.
Yeah. So Gitu
Uh,
Amplifier will at least allow for an attack of 3 here. Don't know if it's a permanent solution, but 2 Gitu Amplifiers on board with basically any combination of cheap spells can really end the game quickly.
yeah,
Those
unfortunately,
those
Cody
cards get
doesn't have
very
any of that.
scary. Those cards get very scary in multiples. It's just representing so much damage, but as you're saying, he doesn't have any spells. Is that it?
Yep. Just gonna run out this 5/5.
Yeah. So Johnny gets to cast a Shadow Prophecy, and then he gets to play a Writhing Necromass. So he's looking at 3 lands and a Vohar. So choices are more or less straightforward here.
Yeah. Well, the Vohar is actually quite good. Just gets him a recast of his draw spells or a removal spell at the moment.
Or the Terra Sunder, perhaps. I think he has what he needs in hand between Bortuk, Writhing Necromass. Probably wants to just fire off a removal from his graveyard rather than a draw spell, but we'll see what he decides. So paying full retail here for the Necromass, as you do sometimes.
Cody has drawn another Molten Monstrosity. Not bad,
All
considering
right.
that now it's kind of just like a beef versus beef war, if it, so to say.
Yeah, in that case, I would think Johnny would be favored just because he has a higher average power level of his cards. And now
Yeah.
his mana is completely straight here. He can cast whatever he draws. So Cody's going to need something to push through and really make a difference here. Because Johnny
Any
has 2
combination,
gigantic value cards in his hand. I mean,
any
Bortuk doesn't get
combination
anything
of,
back yet, but it will
but yeah,
eventually.
any combination of cheap spells into like a removal would be amazing for Cody. Like
Yeah.
just for example, like let's say he would impulse into like a Tolarian Geyser, for instance. I know that's like your favorite card of the set, essentially.
One of them. I'm an admirer of that effect. Yeah, so Johnny is just most likely going to block trade. And then if he casts his Bortuk, it won't put the Necromass into play, but it'll
I just think he's double blocking with the Sentry and the Worker.
I guess he values getting the 4/4 just straight back into play with the
Yeah,
Bortuk rather than getting a 5/5 back in his hand. That's sensible. I mean, the Mana Worker's done its job. It allowed him to kick the Espionage, so he could then find his other lands. So the mana worker has done its job as a mana worker should.
It looks
So
like the monstrosity is gonna be walking straight into a Gaia's Might, though. I think, if I
yeah,
remember
so the
correctly.
guy's might is going to happen here, and Cody's gonna get a 2-for-1, unfortunately. Yeah, that was an unfortunate run out there. One mana. It seems pretty safe to play that into, but as we saw, Gaia's Might has been another one of the standouts here. Uh, just such a good card in these decks. Whether it's
Turns out when
to
it's
block or
more
to
than
deal
giant
damage,
growth.
it's just, yeah. Like sometimes it's a lava axe, sometimes it's like just a kill spell. Like your 2/2 just eats anything on blocks or attacks. Like I said, can just deal 5 damage out of nowhere. Um, really, really interesting, cool combat trick. We haven't seen a 1 mana combat trick at common that can give +4, +5 really to my memory. Right, he's gonna get the last card out of Cody's hand here, which is a Haunting Figment, which wasn't doing too much. Johnny's drawn a Cut Down and a Sunbathing Root Walla here. Sunbathing Root Walla can come down and threaten to attack for 6 at some point.
Yeah, Cody's gonna need a string of really good draws in order to pull off this one, and the land he just drew is not gonna help him towards that.
Yeah, Johnny's up on cards, so he'll just he'll find what he needs here.
At this point, when you're up on cards, you're just trading resource for resource is just beneficial for you.
Yeah, he's gonna trade off his 5/5. Next turn he can play Bortek and get back the Vohar into play if he wishes, I believe.
Vorta can still get back the 5/5. It won't go back into play, but still go back
Yeah,
in the hand if he so wanted to. But I think Vohar is just generically good right
yeah.
now.
We'll see if he wants to go for just the big 5/5 in hand or the value play. Johnny does like value, so he might go for the Vohar here to just draw more cards.
I feel like Bortuk has now just been sent on this with just like like a animate dead sort effect or a resurrection, but it still has the other text of putting it in your hand if you can't get it back, which I think people might forget.
Yeah, at least they made it so you have to cast it. So blinking it doesn't work or anything. You can't just do
Oh
that
yeah,
over and
that
over and over.
very nice quality of life on
Yeah,
the
the effect
card.
is so strong for an uncommon that they didn't want people to be able to abuse it over and over and over. We really don't usually see an uncommon that creature that reanimates a creature, let alone a 4/4 that does it.
Okay, Cody has scryed one of the best cards in the set to it. Well, not scryed, but scavengered one of the best cards in the
Is
format to
that
the
the
top. It
Sphinx?
it is the Sphinx.
Yeah, I think he played that against me.
Uh,
Match one. I think it was both of our first matches on Friday of week one, and he landed the Sphinx against me, and the game ended very shortly. So here comes a Lagamos here. Johnny's got all these cool arts. I know he was playing the Sleeper Agent event on Arena to accumulate all of these alternate arts here that he's showing off in front of the audience.
what's your take on these alternate art?
I think these ones are okay. It goes from set to set. Some of them I just find like terrible, and I don't want to look at. These are fine. These are cool.
Or bring up the Innistrad ones for as
Yeah, in Innistrad, some of them weren't that good to look at, but even in the other sets, I just looked at the alternate arts. I was just like, Kaldheim too. I wasn't too partial to the way they drew them, but these ones are neat.
yeah, kind of just it's kind of just like a legacy take portrait of these legends, some more iconic than others.
Yeah,
Like
I'm okay with it.
the uncommon legends, with exception to like some of them. Like I feel like I've heard very little of them.
Yeah, these are a lot of some of the more unsung characters, perhaps. but maybe those who are into lore might have come across their names. Often, what they do when they come back to these old planes is they often take characters that are mentioned on cards or mentioned in flavor text but don't have their own card and make a card out of them. I know that they do that quite a bit.
I I think we concluded that Gix might come as a card in the next set.
Yes, Cruelty of Gix, referencing yet to be seen Gix character. So Johnny's got Tribute to Urborg and a cut down. So uh, Tribute to Urborg will be able to kill this Sphinx. He'll have to pay a total of, I think it's 6. Yeah. So he had the exact correct card and the exact amount of mana. Sometimes it just works out nicely that way.
Sphinx is a power card. Unfortunately, not when your opponent has all the mana and like all the cards to just deal with it.
Yeah, Sphinx. If Johnny didn't have the removals, I mean, he just drew another Terrace. He just drew another Terrace under this turn. So it's like, even if he didn't have that removal, he had something.
He had
You
like
know,
the Terrace Under or the Tribute in the graveyard that could be recast off the Bohar. He was kind of just well set up to just kill
yeah.
mostly anything.
That was Cody's best hope to get back in this game. That Sphinx, possibly hitting once,
Yep.
but as we saw, it's this game. This game is winding to its end sooner than later.
I guess a card that could technically make it out of the situation would be like Temporal Firestorm.
Yeah, 5 damage could do it.
But I don't know if it's in his deck, and I don't believe it is.
Even then, the Root Walla could survive if because
Yep.
he'd leave
Yep.
out mana. So yeah, we see just the power of this multicolor deck when the mana comes together. Very, very potent and hard to beat. So that was our first feature match. Congratulations to Johnny. And we'll be back for a second one in a little bit.